All right. I am here with Roman, who recently got micro-acquired for 5 figures. I'm excited to learn more. I don't know the company, and I told Roman I'd attempt to pronounce his last name live on the podcast. Um, because I was telling you, Roman, something I always do. They're like, "How do you pronounce your last name?" I'm like, "Nope, you're doing it live." So Roman Livitentico.
No, not it.
How do I pronounce it?
Lytvynenko.
Lytvynenko. Uh,
Sort
what
of.
um, what heritage is that?
But what?
What heritage is that? Is your last name?
Like, not sure I understand the question, but it's like Ukrainian question.
Ukraine. So
Ukrainian
Ukraine.
surname. Yeah, yeah.
Do you want to try pronouncing my last name?
Uh, like totally okay. Gazdecki.
Oh man, yeah, perfect. I I
And
have I have lived a life of my last name being mispronounced more times than I can count, and I get very happy when people get it right. Everybody calls me Gaz though.
oh,
But
that's
to
nice.
kick things off, so dude, you got micro acquired for 5 figures. Congrats on that.
Thank you.
To start, do you want to maybe talk about what the business was, what it did? We can kind of just go from there.
Yeah, sure. So the business is basically SaaS, and the SaaS is about social media scheduling. This is basically like Buffer and like dozen of other applications around. And basically, it was all about subscriptions, and this is it.
Nice. I like how even in like a crowded market with so many other, large competitors, you were still able to build a pretty successful business. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
In terms of your experience on Microcore, how'd it go? So you list the business. What happened next? Like,
Yeah. So basically, I have a very interesting, in my opinion, story about that. So somewhere around June, I was like 5 years in, and uh, I kind of expected this application grew more, but I wasn't really interested in social media at some point of my life, and I was thinking basically in June that I will let it live its life, and I will do something else. But I remember that there is a micro acquire, and I can actually try to sell it. And this is basically what I did. I listed it on MicroAcquire, and uh, man, support is really helpful there. You and the team, and it was really nice. It's really nice to have ability to ask some questions, especially without prior experience of selling the business. I had a lot of questions, and it was super cool that you answer all of them. So I listed, and I started receiving a lot of hellos, I guess. And people were basically asking a lot of different details about finance and all that stuff. So I prepared a profit and losses report and presentation, and basically I waited for some time, and then I met the guy who eventually acquired that.
nice. Huge congrats. And thanks for the comment on support. I used to do all of the support. And so I probably wouldn't have time for this podcast if I didn't have such a great team helping now. So that's great to hear. And congrats on. I like how you prepared materials that buyers need. Like a P&L and a presentation. So good job on that. If so, as you went into due diligence with the buyer, what were some of the key learnings? Maybe if you can go back and maybe be more prepared. Is there any like advice you would give to, let's say, let me reword that. Let's say I'm a founder. I'm listing on MicroAcquire. What were some learnings or tips that you would give to a founder looking to sell their business?
Uh, I definitely recommend tracking expenses. This is, for example, this is something I didn't do, and at the very last moment, I see it, and I started creating the list of the services I use, like AWS and so on and so on. And I started pulling the data from there, like how much money I spent. And it took quite a lot of time. And but this is very useful data. So I'd recommend spending some data on pulling that report. Uh, I believe it's very useful. And of course, like creating presentation, uh, speaking about uh, speaking about your plans, the weaknesses the strengths about the market, like uh, just being as transparent as possible.
I
Because
I
yeah,
love that. Yeah, because the more information you can deliver to a buyer, obviously, the higher chances they're going to be interested, and also just the trust you build with the buyer, because they need to wrap their heads around your business. You know better than anybody, and so when you have that material up front, it can make all the difference. That's great advice.
yeah,
Uh,
and like even if you decide to keep something to yourself, uh, it will appear on due diligence, like whether you want it or not. So it's better to be transparent from the start, and everyone will be happy, I believe.
Nice. How long did it take you from start to finish, from initially listing on MicroAcquire to getting actually acquired and meeting the buyer?
Yeah, so for me, it took, I enlisted somewhere in the start of June, and we basically signed a business sale agreement in August, in 18th of August. We could have done it earlier, but there were some problems with epic.com. So basically, we did it a bit later. So I would say 2 months.
2 months, nice.
Yeah.
What else I got? Okay, so you successfully acquired for 5 figures. You were well prepared with documentation when you were speaking with buyers. 60 days, that's not too bad. I always tell some founders, sometimes it takes a week, sometimes it takes 3 months, 6 months. But nice job on that. I guess, final questions would be, so you sold a business, you got acquired, man. Congrats.
Thank you.
What do you plan to work on now? Or do you plan to take some time off, or?
Yeah, so my plans right now is to start another business, but in the area I'm very interested in, and this is basically some development tooling. Uh, because I really felt it that if you're interested in area, if you really if you have a lot of empathy to the customers, it will be much easier to do something in that market, because uh, at least you can do a lot of content marketing because you know that area, and it will be much easier to grow the business. So right now, this is my next step. I'm going to start another business in some development tooling market.
I love that, and I completely agree. Because what you have is you probably have a unique insight into that market, and that unique insight usually comes from you really like that customer that you're serving. And when I've always been a huge believer that the founders that go the distance and build the biggest companies are the most successful companies, however you define that, are the ones that have fun doing it. And it really, in my opinion, it starts with the customer. Like, that was one of the first things I did when I launched, before I even started anything with MicroAcquire. First thing I did was I wrote down the types of customers I'd love to serve, and you're one of them. Uh, Entrepreneurs, startups, that's kind of like my sport. And so I was like, okay, I would, what kind of business can I build to serve startups? And it's made all the difference in my opinion. I think that's something that more entrepreneurs should really think about is, do you want to be dealing with XYZ customers all day, or someone you could really relate to, and you can have a unique insight, kind of like what you're saying. Question. So uh, you got funds from the acquisition. Will you be using some of those funds to kind of seed your next startup?
Uh, Probably not. Maybe partially. Uh, I believe it will be some mix of personal money and that money. But in general, I expect I will use personal money for fundings. And I don't really think I will need so much of them. I really do believe that you can start almost without any of them. You can even test Google AdWords with very minimal investments. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. I love your attitude in terms of uh, you know, a lot of people are under the impression that, you need a lot of capital to start a company. And uh, more often than not, that's just not the case, unless you're trying to build like the next Google or something like that.
Yeah, maybe this is just the question of scale.
Yeah. Okay, final questions. Who is your favorite entrepreneur, if you had to pick one?
Oh, it's a very tough question. Uh, Let me think a bit. Uh, I'm really, I'm really quiet on Twitter in terms of tweeting, but I really love.
I found you. I read, that's
I
how this podcast happened. You said you acquired, and I was like, hey, I'd love to hear that story, man.
Yeah, but I'm not usually that loud on Twitter. But I do read Twitter a lot, and let me just quickly grab Twitter. Open my Twitter. So yeah, so probably the first one who comes to my mind is Adam Wathan. Not sure if I pronounced the name correctly. If not, I'm sorry. But like the general in general, I really love the idea that a developer can build successful company for like serving other developers. It really inspires me. Uh,
And that's awesome. And that's your people, other engineers, other developers. So I'm really excited to see what you do next. And do you have a company name yet for your new business or startup?
Not yet.
Okay.
Not yet.
Well, I'm excited for you, Roman, and I'm definitely rooting for you. And congrats on the acquisition, and thanks for making the time to share this story. I think it's going to help a lot of entrepreneurs.
Thank you so much. It was nice talking to you.
All right, Roman, great meeting you. Cheers and congrats.
Cheers.